It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
The seventh truth about money that we have discerned is that wealthy people don't inherit their money.
This one gets people upset when you share this one.
It gets people really upset. And I remember growing up, my thought was the only way to be wealthy was to be born wealthy. And for me, that would have stunk because I was not born into riches. And I thought, okay, well, wealthy people, the only way that they get there is that mom and dad must have done it. It must have passed down from generation to generation. In actuality, that's not the case.
Well, it's a coping mechanism. Look, I think when we all are looking to build our own straw men or women to kind of make us feel better about our lives. There's a reason I watch The Bachelor and Bachelorette. It's because you see how crazy other people are in their relationships, and it makes you feel being more normal.
Sure.
And I feel like the same thing happens when you don't come from money. It's a coping mechanism to say, well, look, that person must have had a huge head start. They had some advantage that I don't. But the thing is, when you build that caustic limiting beliefs in your system, the only person you're hurting is actually you,
That's right.
yourself. And that's what I loved, and I go back because it's inspiring to me, to that high school teacher that told me $100 a month can make me a millionaire. Mm-hmm. It was something that simple that kind of woke up a part of my brain and said, you know what, I'm going to be the determining factor of my success.
That's
yes,
right.
I don't come from money, but I can do this. It's going to be inevitable. I'm going to make it happen. And I think that's what we find from the stats. So I put this stat out there to encourage you so that you can take away those limiting beliefs. Don't let somebody be the naysayer, because I think that's the other part. People get in their 40s and 50s and they start having success work against them because maybe they do have lots of debt. They've made some bad life decisions, and then sometimes just life happens. I don't want to take that away, but they instead of just kind of sucking it up and knowing that life just has not worked out completely, they usually go spread this, and then we've educated another group of or another generation to these limiting beliefs.
The other thing I think that's really interesting, because we've shared this all the time. It's like, oh, well, here's what was happening in the late 1990s when Dr. Stanley wrote the book and da-da-da-da-da. And what I find remarkable is how consistent through time this is. Yeah. That it's not something that, just now we're in a different day and age. Because I think that we as humans have a horrible memory, and we don't know our history very, very well at all. So we always assume that like the moment or the time that we're in is different than other moments or other time that there's been. And most of the time, that's not the case.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about this, because you just hit on something. And what's interesting is, Dr. Thomas Stanley with The Millionaire Next Door was the first time I'd seen a stat. And by the way, this stat is so consistent. It blows your mind. It's around 80% of millionaires are first generation. I remember seeing that. I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. And then we had Sarah, Dr. Stanley's daughter, on because she wrote The Next Millionaire Next Door. And she actually had in her book a stat, and I think we put this on a slide, is that all the way back to the 1800s, the stat was 84% of millionaires were first generation. Fast forward to her father's book, The Millionaire Next Door, it's right at 80% in 1996. And then we had Chris Hogan in 2019. He says 79%. And then here's what's cool. We are now big enough. We have enough clients that we do our own wealth study among the Money Guy clients. And we found 77% of our clients are first generation. So it's all right around that 80%. And you're like, wow. It's kind
consistent.
It's very consistent. It's something I want you to pay attention to. Now, look, there is a horrible side to this that I'm going to talk about in some of these upcoming truths, is that for this stat to be real, second generation, 70% of the wealth disappears. Third generation, 90% of the wealth disappears. So there is something that the first generation's doing that gets lost in the second and third. We're trying to make sure we equip you to be that first generation.
And that actually is a perfect segue into our eighth truth. Teaching your children about financial success matters if you don't want to be part of that statistic. If you want to be not part of the 70% that loses it in second generation or 90% in third generation, you need to make sure you're educating your kids about how to approach making financial decisions well.
We just did a show, Young Money Millionaires, really came close to wanting to do it the Lil Wayne way.
Did y'all see?
I really came close to giving that extra syllable on the millionaires. But it is one of those things where I think it's so interesting. We did that show, And it has blown people's minds on how little it takes to be successful if you start young. But we went deeper in the show. We talked about the behaviors, the worldview, the way outlook we want you to instill in your children, so that instead of you having that horrible data point of that 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth in the second generation, it's gone, 90% are gone by the third generation. We want that to stop with you. We want you to be successful for yourself, but then instill good behavior and good money management skills with your children, because that is it's going to pay dividends for you. Because here's something that there's a harsh reality. If your kids are adults and you're still being required, not gifting because you want to help them have, like education goals, or or other positive things. If your kids are requiring economic outpatient care, using the millionaire next door term, that actually sucks resources that you could be using for your own retirement, and it's also making those children be less kind of independent and stand on their own financial legs. You got to be very careful of those behaviors.
That's what I thought was so interesting when it comes to kids, and in Dr. Stanley's book, when he's talking about economic outpatient care. One of the reasons that wealthy people were able to be wealthy is because their kids were not suckling off of it. And one of the reasons that wealthy people were able to be wealthy is because their parents were not subsidizing their lifestyle. Like, it is a multi-generational thing that if you can teach kids well how to do finance right, you can set up not only the next generation, but the next and next and next and next to follow in that line. Unfortunately, most folks don't do that.
Yeah,
most folks fail at that.
So if you're a parent out there watching this, go watch our Young Money Millionaires show, but then also, do some basic things. While your kids are young, teach them the value of a dollar.
Yep.
Understand needs versus wants, so you're trying to instill, that deferred gratification, the discipline into them. And then I'll tell you, an exercise I've been very successful with my own teenager. Start doing a dollar for dollar match. Just like your employer is giving you an incentive by matching money to get you in the employer retirement plan, you're going to do the same thing with your kids, and it's going to help them be more successful and also start those foundational good behaviors that will create their own level of success outside of you.
I did a marshmallow test 2 nights ago.
Uh-oh.
You want to hear about it?
Now, was this with your youngest?
Both of them. Okay. At the same time, because you thought, I was like, all right, my one teacher. So we had plates of food, and we had broccoli and chicken and something else and something else. And we played this little game that my oldest had taught us at school. And so we had some M&Ms, some peanut M&Ms, if you will.
Those are my favorite. Almond M&Ms.
What I did is I gave each of my daughters 2 M&Ms. And I said, girls, listen to me. If you eat all of your food and the last thing left on your plate are these 2 M&Ms, Daddy will give you 2 more. But if you eat them before you finish all your broccoli and all your chicken and all whatever the other stuff was, then no M&Ms. Barrett, you would have...
That's the oldest one.
That's my oldest one. You would have... those M&Ms, you would have thought there was something wrong with them because you wouldn't even get close to them. So she ate everything
She's what,
else.
4 or 5?
5. She'll be
5.
6 in June. She got 2 more M&Ms. Baylor, my youngest, 3, almost 4, we're still working on her. We're still working on getting her there. But you better believe I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep going through the marshmallow test. Because look, my 3-year-old, she does not have deferred gratification locked down yet. But you better believe I'm going to beat it into her over and over and over and over
again. You're going
to
teach it into her.
I meant beat it into her brain. Beat it into her brain is what I meant to say. Because it matters.
Not in a corporal punishment type of way.
Not that way. Because it matters. Raising our kids well to do money well is important. It's one of the truths that we learn. So don't be discouraged. I am of the opinion it's something that you can change. I can't believe I just said I'm going to beat it into her.
It's perfectly fine. I think we all got your point, but it is important. Start working on the kids as soon as possible because, I think it will pay dividends. And plus, there's a sense of pride if you can have some independence from your children as well.